Hi and welcome to the Gemhawks YouTube channel. Today we're going to make one wire drop earrings. Really simple, easy to make, takes a few minutes, a single piece of wire per earring and just 3 beads. Let's head down to the board, we'll take a look and then we'll make one together. A single 6-inch length of wire and 3 beads will make this earring in moments. So the wire I'm working with today is 0.8mm or 20 gauge wire. This is a 6-inch length. If you're making a pair of earrings, you will naturally enough need 2 of those. We're going to start off by turning a right angle approximately halfway along that wire. And I'm going to use a chasing hammer and block now to knock everything over on my desk, obviously. And what we're going to do is to just past where that angle change occurs, we're going to cover up the bit we're not presently working with, and we're going to hammer around about an inch worth of wire. You can very gently tap on the angle change itself, but not towards the wire that's coming out to the side. We're going to bring our first bead down onto the side of wire that we've hammered and just bring that all the way down to the base. Now we need to ensure that the wire that is not hammered is nice and warm and fluid. So because it's a 0.8mm or 20 gauge wire, be careful how you warm that. If you grab hold of it and pull it away, you're likely to make it all go a slightly wonky. So just grip carefully down at the base of the hammered section and warm the wire through, especially that first sort of inch or so. Bring the bead down to the base of the design, grip very firmly and draw the tail of unhammered wire around the side of the bead and over the top of that core wire. There we go. So what we're going to do now is to bring that tail of wire and wrap it twice around the piece of wire that we've hammered. So it's very warm in the UK today, so my hands are a little bit slippery. So all the way around twice. You can give that a little bit of a tighten up with some flat facing pliers if you need to. Again, we'll warm through the unhammered wire and bring our next bead into position on the hammered section of wire. So draw that down against the wrap. Make sure that's toasty warm, and then it's starting underneath the core wire, around the edge of that bead, over the top of the core wire. So grip as firmly as you're able to. Draw that all the way around twice and back to the side where it started. Just get that nice and tautened up if you need to. Give it another little bit of a warm, and then we'll add our third bead into position. Once that's sitting where you want it to sit, we're going to draw that around one more time, over the top again of that core wire. Now I'm going to take a closer look at my existing earring. Normally I would make them part by part or piece by piece, so that I can do one wrap, make the other side, do the second wrap, make the other side, and so on and so forth. That makes for a very boring video. So I'm going to ensure that I wrap the same number of times at the top of this little bead stack as I have on my first earring. So it's 4 visible wraps on the first earring. If you need to use your pliers to help you get that into position, then do so. All the way around one more time, and then I'll take that over the back, make sure that's nice and taut, a really nice neat stack of those wires before trimming away at the back there. Let's get that into the melt pot, which has gone AWOL. And then just make sure there are no sticky uppy bits. It's important in wire jewellery that you do ensure that the wire ends are as close to the core as possible. It's especially important if you're working with earrings, because it's in an area that is more likely to catch on scarves or hair or anything like that. So we have matched our ear wire so far. We've matched our design so far. So just make sure that that core wire stays nice and straight. That's why we hammer it first. And then also ensure that everything is down as tight as possible to the base. The best way you can do that is to wrap really neatly and tightly each time before you add a bead, so that there's no work for you to do. So I have matched these equal and opposite to each other. And what we're going to do now is to bring the wire forwards at about 45 degrees, like so. So this is the front of my design, the cut sits at the rear. Give that wire a little bit of a warm through, and then you can use a pencil, a wooden mandrel. I'm going to grab my multi-step bail makers, but I can't remember what number I used. Number 5 by the looks of things. So I'm going to make an equal sized loop for the ear lobe, and just on the back of the design I'm just going to stroke that into position to begin with. Just give it a little bit of a gentle pinch, and again this is the sort of thing that you would make them side by side so you can get those angles exactly the same. Also, you will want to trim those wires to be exactly the same length. So I'm just going to stack them, the one that I have yet to trim on top of the one I've already trimmed. Much easier when you're not quite so warm as I am today, which is lovely, nice problem to have. And I'm going to trim that so that it's exactly the same length. I'm also going to share with you a tool that I recently received for my birthday. It was my birthday a couple of weeks ago. My lovely husband bought me the Beadalon. It's a bead reamer, but you can also grab a wire rounder tip. Now I know that as a burr cup. So the burr cup sits in the end, and I'm just going to pop that on the very end of that wire. Now if you don't have one of these tools, you can carefully file that down, but it just takes off any nasty snaggy bits. One last thing we're going to do is to very gently hammer only the front side of that ear wire. So the reason I hammer here is first for strength, but it also keeps a really nice smooth look whilst preventing the ear wire from slipping round too far. I don't tend to hammer the back. If I do, it's just a few gentle taps, but we're going to focus on the front half. So I'm making sure that the wrap is off the block, and I'm only going halfway along. And then I'm just strengthening up the front, and you can see that's really nice and smooth. It now glints in the light. If you do want to add a little strength to the wire part, because we're working with a 0.8mm gauge or 20 gauge wire, be very gentle. I would even say possibly use nylon jaw pliers and just open and close a few times. I'm not changing in any way the shape of the wire. I'm just adding a little bit of rigidity to it. So there you have your one wire drop earrings made in minutes with very limited materials. They're incredibly comfortable to wear, and really just a couple of minutes time, 6 beads, 2 6-inch lengths of wire, and you are done. I hope that you've enjoyed today's tutorial. Please do like the video if you have, share it with your friends on all of your social channels, and drop me a subscription to the channel to see more. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.